Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother. How is it going?
Not bad, not bad. Rash, what you saying, man?
I'm all good. I'm all good.
Yeah,
Just finished
yeah,
work,
yeah,
so
yeah.
can't complain.
That's all good, man. I can see brother JK's starting as well, inshallah. Well, he says he's joining. We'll wait for him to join before we get into the meat and stuff. But yeah, nah, I might sound a bit croaky and stuff. Got not being all too well, but can't complain.
Okay, I thought maybe you've been singing "It's Coming Home" too much, maybe.
Yeah, you know what, man? If I was, then that could justify that and say, look, I lost my voice because of singing is coming home. But yeah,
People aren't going to
it's
believe you until they properly listen to the rest of this podcast.
yeah, exactly. I mean, the title, as you know, is it's not coming home, and that's what we're gonna discuss. But JK, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
JK to Earth to JK.
Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum. Can you hear me?
Bro. Yeah, I can hear you, man. Yeah, yeah. All good. Yeah, we were just having a bit of a chit chat, waiting for you to join, so we can, before we make a start and all that. Everything all right with you?
Yeah. Yes, alhamdulillah. I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, not bad.
Alhamdulillah.
Can't complain. Yo, there's already a comment coming. This must be just a salam or something because we ain't even said anything yet. But let's let's have a listen before we start. Yeah. Okay. It's the final countdown.
Okay, yeah, the joys of stereo.
Yeah, exactly, man. The guy had pretty good voice, but anyway, we're not here to speak about singing and stuff. So yeah, listen, let's get into it. As you know, we normally do this weekly roundup, but today we're gonna concentrate mainly on the issues concerning it's coming home, or as we know, the Euro 2020 finals yesterday. Crazy events, whether for sporting reasons and for many reasons. So inshallah, let's discuss this because there's so much to speak about. It's unbelievable. So what I want to speak about first and get your views, brothers. Right, is one thing I noticed throughout this tournament is there were two camps, shall I say. You had some people when it came down to Muslims actually backing or supporting England. So you had Muslims who were singing "It's Coming Home" or wearing the England jersey or waving the flags and stuff. You had some people who were doing this, and whilst at the same time you had some people who were saying that Muslims shouldn't be doing this. So what I wanted to get your opinion on, and let's start talking is, is there a contradiction between just say Muslims living in England, in UK, supporting the England national team? Is this not the same as someone supporting the Italian team or the German team, or do you think, or do you think there's more to it? But anyway, there's loads to speak about, and just let's start off on this one, just to see what your thoughts are, inshallah.
Yeah, so I think there is a difference in my opinion, and I think it comes down to what people who engage in these sports do it for. So it'd be unfair if someone was just turning on and going, watching a game of football and going, okay, it's England versus Italy. I'm going to support England because I live here, as a bit of light entertainment, and didn't see past that. If you imagine you turned on a game and there's two teams playing and you don't really associate with either one, and you just go, okay, I'm going to support that team because watching a game while supporting a team is more entertaining than just watching it purely as a neutral.
Sure.
So I think if in that respect, then, and again, I don't think that many people fall into that category, but in that respect, I personally don't see it as too much of an issue. Yeah. But the problem where I see it as an issue is that England, and as a country, it represents something. It's a nation, isn't it? It's people who are supporting England are doing it normally under the banner of nationalism and patriotism. It means that even if it's just purely because they live here, they're doing it because they associate themselves with the identity of being English. and or if they do it on that basis, then I think that's where it conflicts with their identity of being a Muslim, because this is the same nation that, as we've seen, whole the Crusader flag and all of that represents this nation being a colonialist power, being one that continues to being involved in wars that are happening in Muslim lands. I think there's a lot of association of England to that. And if you support England because you identify as
Hmm.
someone who is English in that way, then I think that's where there's a problem personally.
Right. Okay. JK, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I think, as in, just to expand on the first point that Rash made, that I think if you're just supporting the team because of its kind of you enjoy the way they play and the skill of the players that are involved, and you think, oh, actually they've got a good chance to win, so I'm going to support this team. I think that's one thing. But then if you're genuinely just supporting them only because you identify yourself as being English and your land as being England, and you're happy to wave the flag, and that's when it goes down the line of supporting the team purely due to nationalism. It's nothing to do with the skill of the team or whether you like to watch them or the way they play or anything like that. It's purely to do with nationalism or patriotism. And we know as Muslims, we don't identify as English or Pakistani or Bangladeshi. We identify as Muslims. That's our identity. We're one ummah. And anything else, any other kind of bond, is a division, divides the ummah. So we know that Islam has dictated to us that we are part of one body, one ummah. And that's
Hmm.
the way we should identify. Anything beyond that, it's like I said, it causes division. And just in terms of supporting England, there are many Muslims that do, and I don't think they do it out of kind of it's largely ignorance. So it's kind of okay, we'll just kind of follow the bandwagon and the thing that everyone else seems to be doing, we'll just follow that, and they're supporting them just like that. But then when the slogans such as "It's coming home," that we spoke about, that's when it kind of broadens out a little bit more. That actually, is England your home? Do we view England as our home as Muslims? And that's a good question, isn't it? That our parents came here mostly to kind of for an economic reason to kind of earn a bit of money, and actually because our lands had already been divided by the colonialists, they were kind of forced to come here because there was no kind of benefit from living in the Asian subcontinent or other lands and the Muslim lands. They were forced to come here, but they never had the real intention that this would be their home. But why is it that now we, the next generation, the second generation, the third generation, view England as our home? And that's why I have a bit of a problem with that, because it isn't our home. England and the British government have, colonized our lands. They continue to invade and occupy Muslim lands and harm our brothers and sisters, kill our brothers and sisters. How can we view this as our home? How can we genuinely look in the mirror and say this is our home? Do we really understand the concept of ummah if we view it like this?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. What you're saying is, I mean, you've made some interesting points, both of you, to be honest with you, because it seems like it's not just a case of how can a Muslim support England? Look what England's doing. It's been partaking in wars. Historically, it's been against Muslims and so on. And then someone else might turn around and say, actually, no, there's that as well. But what it could be the problem here is nationalism, because if, as we know in Islam, asabiya, nationalism is forbidden. So if someone is doing it because this is my land and this is my country, then whether the guy was waving a Pakistani flag, whether he was waving a Bangladeshi flag or a Yemeni flag, whatever, the same would apply. So in both those cases, you could argue that someone does have some sort of a case to say, look, how can we support England? But at the same time, I gotta say that if there's people out there who, and especially with youngsters, if you got a youngsters out there who are supporting England for sporting reasons because they're the players that they support in their local football teams, they play for that national team. You know what I'm trying to say? I think there is a big difference. The thing is for me, and probably Rash might feel what I'm saying here, is that with me, it's a bit different when it comes to sport in England, because I'm like what I would probably class as second generation in the UK, right? So I grew up at a time where it was clear that where your parents came from, it was clear that even when our elders were dying, right, they were going back to Pakistan. So it was clear that it was that confusion, like, are we from here? Are we from there? You used to go there and you were seen a bit funny, right? Here you were called a Paki, and it was this confusion where no one ever made you feel like it's home, right? So you could never come home because this was never home. So for me, a bit old school, you know, I can't support just say England as a football team or stuff like that, because I know what it is associated, whether it's to do with stuff we'll speak about later, like bigotry, racism, and so on. I've seen it firsthand, right? But for the newer generation, I think it's easier to support them because of the fact that maybe their grandparents were here, then their parents were here. They're like third generation. So, JK, going back to your point, maybe they do feel like it's home.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
I think
think
they do. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what it is as well. It's easy for you and me, Madge, to say that because I think both of us weren't born here, so there's that a separate kind of detachment. I think those people, I know JK was born here, but even those people after him, that people who not just was born here, but like you say, their parents were born here, and the more that goes, down the lineage, I think that assimilation side of things, if you don't have a strong identity that overcomes the nationalist identity that's imposed on you, then it's easy to assimilate. Do you see what I mean? Because what you
Yeah.
have to do is you have to have a strong Islamic identity or a strong other identity for it to overcome what is given to you by the mass media. We've seen with the England getting this far in the World Cup, sorry, in the Euros this time, how much the media covers it. So it's quite easy. Do you not notice sometimes, even sports that you're not that interested in, if the media suddenly starts talking about a certain MMA fight or a certain boxing match or a certain cricket match, you get that natural tendency to want to watch it or to follow it.
Yeah, big
Whereas
time.
when the media is not mentioning something, someone suddenly comes to you and go, "Oh, so and so fought so and beat them yesterday." You're like, "Oh yeah, I didn't even know that was happening." So what the media tries to do is give you a kind of an identity. And if you don't have an identity of your own, it's a lot easier for that alternative identity to take root in you. And I think that's what's happening certainly amongst a lot of the youth. And we've seen it, haven't we? We've all seen the pictures of the madrasa or the video of the madrasa, all the kids watching the England game and celebrating. And again, this is not you can't blame them because that's the environment they're in. That's what they're been allowed to do. That's the social media that they hear. So it's quite natural. And I think that assimilation happens just because we live here now.
Okay, just gonna play a comment, inshallah, yeah, and a question or a comment, and we'll take it from there.
Cool.
Guys, just to give a different perspective, do you think there's an element of ignorance here? Because, I don't think people follow England in that exclusive way for nationalism. So, for example, I know plenty of people who would support Pakistan in the cricket and then just follow England in the football because it's just a team to follow for a variety of reasons. Because they separate it from the nationalistic element, so everyone knows what the UK government has done, especially with this war against Islam, and they will not associate with it. But they separate that from the football, like as though football is an independent entity. But we know that football is actually used as a political ploy because we know the Prime Minister and politicians always get involved in it and promote it because it does promote that nationalistic concept. So really my point is, are they naive to not see that element of it and follow it, and hence...
Yeah, I mean, what I would say to that is what Rash said, to be honest with you. The thing is we're not saying we're not going to people's intentions and we're not attacking anyone. A lot of people, it is purely for sporting reasons. But I think what Rash was saying is the fact that, this sport, it's used and it's linked to more than just a sport. It's linked to nationalism. It's linked to, this is your country. And it may well be there are some people, in my opinion, that are just following it for sport reasons. That's fine. But what are we seeing lately? We're seeing imams of mosques showing, holding the Union Jack and stuff like that in the mosque. But what are they saying though? They're not just saying, yeah, we're going to support England because, Rashford or Harry Kane plays for them. They say we're going to support England. This is our country. It doesn't matter about religion. We're all together. You see where it's going down. I think that's the problem. What do you think, Rash?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think what it is there will be some people who do it, and I agree with the comment that was given as well, because there is that element of ignorance, definitely, where it's just a matter of, I want to watch the football, I want to support someone, I might as well support the country that I'm in. But I think the issue some people don't appreciate, and this is where the education side has to come into play. Yeah, the thing that people don't appreciate is these sports are more than just entertainment. These sports, they represent, you have to go back to some of the roots. Where did these sports come from? Yeah, and what's most interesting is that obviously we're talking about England here. A lot of people will know that the vast majority of sports are, why do they always say it's coming home? They might as well say it's coming home to cricket, to badminton, to tennis, to all of them. So many sports are from the English. Why is that? Don't people question this? These sports, the reason they're coming home to England, or they never come home to England, is because sorry, maybe there are some. Yeah, they win some. They're quite good at the cricket at the moment, so I'll give them that. But sometimes what it is these sports were created by the British because of their colonialist history. Okay, when they colonized large parts of the world, what they did was use sport as a mechanism of controlling the people. It was a way of bringing the people under their control. It was what they used to call it's like soft power. Yeah, and even the word soft power has been used recently in terms of sport. It's what allows people that, normally don't identify as British. There will be Muslims who will go, when I go to school, people call me a Paki and this, that, and the other. So I don't identify as British. But then all of a sudden, if we all support the same football team, then it gives some degree of identification. And we saw it in the colonialist past when they took certain sports to different countries. The indigenous people, they embraced those sports because they saw that as a means of getting away from the hardships, being integrated with the colonizer. So it was a way for the colonizer and the colonized to form some kind of a bond. Yeah, when they bonded together, it made it so much easier for the colonizer to control the colonized. And this was through sport. Some other nations didn't do this as much, like the French, and they were more barbaric in their approach. Whereas the British used this soft power, velvet glove type approach to make their colonized feel as if they were more, more in line with them. And then that way they were able to utilize them more. And this is where this sport comes from. And again, I know we're going in quite deep. Most people probably don't even look at it that way. But you do need to look at the root of these things, because today, in one generation, we might just say, oh, okay, I'm just following it for the sport. But what happens with these things? After several generations, you forget why your forefathers might have supported. You then get ingrained in the true identity side of it.
Let me say one thing on some of that JK mentioned, and I want to add to him and pass it over to him, Rash, that he asked the question, is this our home, for example, right? The reality is for me, I'll be straight with you, I can go Pakistan and whatever, but that feeling that I have when the planes coming to land, and you see the motorway and the houses, and that feeling is the fact that, whoa, I'm back. Yeah, whether you want to say that's home or not, but I see it as home in that respect, right? Because this is where I've been brought up. But the question I got is, if we say, I'm going to support England because this is our country, right? Then okay, if you're restricted to sport, fair enough. But then, wouldn't the British Armed Forces be our army? Wouldn't you understand? Where would it stop? And there's obviously a problem there with that. What do you think, JK?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And going back to what you said earlier about the mosque imams and stuff like that, the message that they said, like I said, it wasn't just a case of, oh, let's support England, which is bad enough.
Yeah.
But they were promoting the message of integration. We are one. We are united, and that's deliberate. That is very deliberate because that, like you said, that makes the point that we're all in it together. Our team is one. Our army is one. And you know how we talk about our boys. You might talk about our boys in terms of the England football team, but also that same terminology is used for the soldiers, our boys. So, as Muslims, do we view the British Army as our boys when they're the ones that are killing Muslims in Iraq and Afghanistan and other Muslim countries? And the answer is no. And this is the danger, as Rash has been saying, that yes, it's just a sport, you could say. It's just you guys are being too serious. It's only a sport, but there's deeper meanings behind the sport and the roots of sport. And I used to even wonder when I was a kid that why is it that cricket is so big in Pakistan and Bangladesh? Like, it's so random. Like when I was younger, I used to think that's random. Why is it so big there? Why aren't all the other, like America and all the other teams, why aren't they that good at cricket? And it's all back to colonialism, isn't it? As Rash was saying, that they used sport as a soft power approach to integrate the people. And also the other point is that they used it as a means for them to kind of show their anger through sport. So it's okay if they show a bit of their anger and anger towards the colonizer through the sport because it's controlled, as long as it doesn't come out into society, because actually that's where they don't want the people to rise up against them. So they use sport for two means: one for integration, but also for containing that aggression, you could call it, or that containing that anger towards the colonizer. So as you're saying, I think it isn't our home. And by saying it's our home, it has implications for many other things, as you said, like the armies and things like that.
The thing is, most people listening, they might say, well, you're going too much into this or home and stuff like this is where I live. And so what we're talking about here really is something which everyone should look at it at this level, because there is more to it. Like you're saying, all these sports. I remember watching Trevor Noah once, and he was doing a bit of comedy, and he was talking about exactly the same thing, that they set up the Commonwealth, right? But it's funny because he goes, there was nothing common about the wealth, because the wealth was only in one place. But these tools have been used, and so with what you're saying about division or bringing people together on superficial lines, okay. Let's extend this now, because we know what happened with the football. We know what the result was. And, the way it ended in a way where you had, 3 players of Jamaican origin, I think 3 black players who were now going to be used as scapegoats. I remember telling the kids straight away, I said to my son, Mohammed, I said, you know what, go and check Saka's Twitter. Soon as he checked it, he was shocked. He goes, all I can see is the monkey emojis, right? So one thing that this event has highlighted, and this should be a message for Muslims, because they're being told we're one, right? And we're Muslims, but the way they are treating the people who actually do feel like they're part of them is quite clear, whether it's to do with the racist abuse to the footballers, whether it's, I was speaking to somebody today actually, he was telling me like he was traveling in London after the match or around that time, and he said the amount of racist abuse he witnessed with his own eyes, he goes, it was unbelievable, and he goes, I was so worried for these for the black people, or like this. He was telling me that there was this a woman and an old man, and someone was in their face, and he was worried they were going to get bottled. So basically, this has opened up a bit of a horrible kind of worm, shall I say, right? But what it's been shown as is this is just a minority. What do you guys think about that?
Do you want to play the comment first and then we answer?
Oh, is that comment? Oh, okay. Let's listen to Magtronics.
I think what gets me is the Muslims who try to force themselves to be accepted in society. If you look at the three black players who missed the penalty for England, they're actually getting racial abuse. They don't have to really prove their obedience or acceptance because they follow the same beliefs or culture, values, whatever. But the fact that they've got a different color means that they won't be accepted because otherwise they won't be getting racial abuse. The other thing is that yesterday marked the 26th anniversary of the Srebrenica massacre, and the Bosnian Muslims, there was no difference to the Serbs in terms of their appearance, the way they did things. They used to intermarry, they do everything together. But the massacre took place basically that fact that they were Muslims and that they weren't accepted in Europe. So the Muslims should really try to find their identity.
Wow, yeah,
Yeah.
some solid points there. Some solid points there. I mean, the first point the brother made was linked to what I was saying, and the second point about Srebrenica. What do you guys want to comment on that and bring in the racist bit, the question I brought after that, maybe?
Yeah,
It's a really good. Sorry.
Yeah, go on, Baker. You go.
No, what I was going to say is it's a really good point that the brother made. That in fact, those guys who missed the penalty and those who are kind of supporting it, they've already accepted to be English. Like they consider themselves English, not just English. They're actually representing England. So, what more do they need to do? There's nothing more they need to do. They've done to the full extent. They're actually playing for England. But it's a really good point that even after that, even after fully integrating, they don't identify any other way except being English. Even after that, they are viewed as the outsiders. And it reminds me of the verse of Allah where Allah says that, and it's not really related to them, but more to the Bosnian Muslims. But, they would never accept you, or the Jews and Christians never accept you until you follow their way, their religion. And that point was really made in the Srebrenica massacre, even though they fully integrated, and you couldn't even tell them apart, just because they carried the identity of being Muslim, they weren't accepted. And it's similar to racism now. Just because of your skin tone, your pixel on your skin, or the skin color you have, you're viewed as different because you're not one of them. You're not British. You're not white, and they use this as a means to kind of blame them. And it's amazing that the only players that missed the penalty were black. And I think when that happened, everyone knew that, what's going to go down after this.
Bro, I knew straight away. Yes, Rash, what are you saying?
Yeah, I was just going to say, this just highlights one thing that every Muslim should consider this. This highlights the hypocrisy and the falsehood behind the ideology of much of the world today. This idea of capitalism, this idea that, of secular values being that you form bonds around people, be it on nationalist tendencies, be it patriotically, be it based on your color, be it based on all of these very, very artificial things.
Superficial,
Completely superficial, artificial things. Whether say you're born on that side of a line drawn in the sand, and I'm born on this side of the land, and somehow that makes us different. How artificial is that? The mud might even be the same mud, just because someone's drawn a line on a map that somehow is supposed to make us different. This is how artificial. In the same way as you said, that pigment that makes your color skin slightly different brown to mine versus someone with white skin. This is how artificial this notion is, and people carry that. Whereas Islam is the ideology and the deen that came to eradicate this, came to say that everybody, every single person, whether their color, whatever their color, wherever they're from, what differentiates them is only in their level, in terms of their belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in terms of their piety, in their actions, and that they have to have that belief that a creator created them. When you have that, then all of these other superficial things just go out of the window. And every Muslim should appreciate that the racism they see in the world today, the only way they're going to get rid of it is if people embrace Islam.
Yeah, like Malcolm X once said, man, the only solution to racism in America is Islam, and it's exactly what you said, Rash. The fact that here you got people who come together uh, on a bond which is erroneous. Now, even let's just look from a football point of view, right? Football point of view, people have come together to watch the football. And someone was telling me, I was chatting to a guy earlier, and this guy's not Muslim. He said to me, you know what? He goes, what I find strange is about half an hour, or just say the 100 and whatever minutes of the match before the penalty shootout, those same people would have been supporting these guys, right?
Supporting them, yeah, exactly. Well, even some,
yeah,
some,
go on.
I was just saying, even some they have black people in the army. You know, these are people that are going out and fighting for you, and they're now going out on a football field and playing for you, and you're supporting them. But as soon as something doesn't go your way, you attack them. It's despicable.
Yeah, listen, I want just play this comment, guys. Yeah.
Comment. Yep.
Okay. Let's do it.
Linked to the point that Maj made, the fact that we were expecting abuse for those black players, does that not suggest how deeply rooted racism is in this society? And not only that, the fact that people are expecting it and people are brave enough to go out there and openly shout racism, racist abuse, and this was done all over the country, there's also an acceptance that this is there, and yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, this one Gary Neville said, didn't he? Gary Neville came out and he said, look, in a way, he said, look, if the Prime Minister is racist, right, what are you expecting? And you know, the thing is when I was watching the match with the kids and stuff, right, and what I said to him, you know, when they were showing the scenes of like people fighting, or they're showing the scenes in the crowd and all that, all I said to them, I said, look, you tell me, kids, what do we actually have in common with these people? You know, exactly. as Muslims, do these people reflect us? And you know, when you see the odd brown face in the crowd, it feels odd. I'm not talking about from a color point of view. From a Muslim point of view, you're in an environment, there's alcohol, it's just crazy. You know, people. You know, what do we have in common as mu'mins, as believers, as the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What do we have in common with hooligans or people like this? And the reality is, we don't have anything in common. And the thing is a point that Rash made earlier, I think, I'm sure it's Rash that made it, and it's sort of like hit me now, that, you know, the problem, people say, oh, well, you're looking too much into it. I remember a time when generally guys wouldn't support England in anything. And I'll tell you the proof for that is the Tibet test. If you guys know Lord Tibet, years ago, he was a politician, and he called it the Tibet test. Basically, he said when Pakistan come to play test cricket in England, who do the Pakistani support, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
At that time, it was unknown. Now people are supporting it. Fair enough. Okay, as a sport, fair enough, right? Because their players are their team players are playing in the national squad. But the next generation, the reality is that when you're being told this is you, you know, this is your concerns. This, you know, how many people shouldn't really, these people who are promoting the fact that, you know, be behind England or all this emotionally on the night of the final, like the brother mentioned and JK mentioned, we know that was the anniversary of Srebrenica. And I'm not blaming the Muslims because they just don't know, but isn't it a bit sad that more Muslims would have been upset about what happened in the final than compared to what happened in Srebrenica? Is because they don't know, is because they're not being informed, and that's the reality of it. But the point I'm making is that, yeah, this generation may see it, next generation, but a couple of generations down the road, I think this is a long game. People are not looking at it.
And that's why someone might see it as an overreaction, because they're like, okay, look, it's just a game. But that's where people aren't taking a step back and going, look, you know, look at the change from one generation to the next. Like you said, in our generation, when we watched World Cups earlier, we you know, when Saudi were in it or when Iran was in it, we'd support those guys because we were like, you know, we don't belong here, or we're not born here, or our parents are not from here. We didn't identify. You know, we used to go to school at times when we were being called Paki by, you know, every Tom, Dick and Harry. So we didn't identify as people here. Whereas now, that's totally changed. And what will happen in another couple of generations? But you know what? I've got another
Yeah, yeah,
totally different angle on this, if you want to hear it. So, this whole idea of like, there's a lot on social media, isn't there? A lot of the racism is on social media. Thing is,
yeah,
we know it exists because we see it in society. And when people are drinking alcohol, their true kind of feelings come out.
Yeah.
100%.
So we see that. But you know what? I think there's an ulterior motive as well. A lot of these accounts that are set up that, spout racism and, put all these stupid emojis on people's like social media accounts.
Yeah.
I've had a feeling that, do you not think, what they're trying to do is they're trying to change the rules of social media in the future, where every single person who has a social media account will need to provide their passport, because they want to make sure that people can't be anonymous. Okay, so
the passport.
Go on.
Just say, Rash, that the just to add to your point, the passport thing. I don't know, but you know what you've just said there. Early on when I was watching this, and they were talking about like making it stricter. Exactly the same thought came on my mind. What you just
so
saying
it's
now.
going to be easier. Yeah, it's going to be easier for them to, if they need to pass a law in the future that says you now need to have a passport or ID to create an account, then what that is, and this is where, Muslims might even advocate this. Muslims might come forward and go, yeah, we think this is a good idea, but without realizing that as soon as they do that, that's their way of identifying anybody who has carries any ideas that are against their British values, that are against democracy, that are against secularism, that are against liberalism. So this might be also an underhand way of changing the laws. And we've seen they've done this many a time. When 9/11 happened and stuff like that, they passed certain laws that previously would have been seen as draconian. And I think there's also this ulterior motive as well, personally.
Yeah, I think there is merit in that argument, because if you think about it, in the traditional media, they were able to control that. They were able to control what was said on the news, and this was used for their propaganda machine. So they need to continue to do this, because it kind of drives their ideology, where they can control the narrative. And social media has come along and absolutely changed the way the narrative can be driven, and people take more of their news from social media than any other medium. So they have had to try and find a way they can control that narrative, and also censorship of certain ideas, so that they can promote their own values. So I think there is definitely merit in what you're saying.
I think also there's that, but also at the same time, I really do believe that a lot of people do feel like this, and like Rash said, so many people in the morning, they regret what they did was because they were drunk, and they let their true feelings out, and that's why I want to sort of touch upon the fact that if you think about what we see around us, this and some of that Rash alluded to earlier, that the only thing that can actually bring about order and peace and justice for everyone is Islam. Because if you think about a lot of people, human beings, we need a purpose in life, don't we? We need a purpose in life, and for us, we understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us to worship Him, and we will work towards, the hereafter and the day of judgment and so on. But for a lot of people, their purpose is this dunya, so they need to bond around things that gives them some sort of purpose. Like, so you might hear some people talk about following a particular football team as a religion, right? And it comes to that extent, it's that bad that, you probably know about this already, that, and this is fact, this is not me saying it, the cases of domestic violence go up 26% when England are playing, and 38% if they lose. So imagine the misery people are living in. Even some, even there's a wife somewhere or a partner somewhere who is worried. They definitely want England to win, not because of the cup. It's because they know what's going to happen afterwards. Imagine that. Imagine living in a society like this, and this is the reality. And the thing is that if people follow their whims and desires, I remember there's an ayat from the Quran translation of the meaning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, the truth, i.e., the deen or the Quran, if the truth had been in accordance with their desires of man, with their desires, right? Truly the heavens and the earth and all beings therein would have been in confusion and corruption. Okay? So this is something that we see that, this is more than just a sport, like we're saying. As Muslims, can we relate to the fact that because of a sport, a result in a match, we're going to beat our children up or beat our wives up? Can we relate to that? Can we relate to these things? We can't. So you know what I'm trying to say? That's why I said to my kids, I said, look, how can we really relate to these people? We're so different.
That's a good question, because I think a few of us are United fans. So we do follow sport, we watch football, and it has happened where you watch a game of football and after it, your team's lost, and you do feel like, I would even shouldn't use the word upset, but you feel an emotional, you're down about it. And
bro, say as is, you are upset, man. It's not like an upset, okay, like someone dies upset.
So no, but my point is that what will happen is that you'll feel down about it. Something else will be affected by it, whether it's, I don't know, wanting a bite to eat, or whether it's your mood or whatever it is. But what I find amazing is that all it takes is 1 second for me to go, what's more important? Your family is more important, your Islam is much more important, and that feeling almost can it's like a fire, and you neutralize it with water. And that's what Islam does, because you already have a criteria which is far more important. But imagine you don't have that criteria.
It's crazy, bro.
You don't have that water. What happened? That fire just stews, and then all of a sudden you just think this is the be all and end all. And I can immediately understand why someone like that, who has no other correct criteria in life, would then go and do something stupid like abuse their child or abuse their wife.
The thing is, even I remember when I was a bit younger, it would affect me more, and it's linked to not having Islam, like not really understanding Islam that much. We're Muslim, but not really understanding Islam. When United would lose, genuinely, I'd feel very upset, didn't want to talk, go into my bedroom and not talk to my parents or anything like that, just because Man United have lost. And it goes back to the point Madge made, that football is a religion to those who don't have a religion, really, or those who don't give importance to a religion. And it fills that void, because we have a natural inclination to show loyalty to something, to revere something, right? And football actually fills that void for many, and that's why you see banners at the football match. They admit it, that football is our religion or something like that. There's banners at football because they view it as
there's the famous United one, isn't it? There's one that is like United, the religion. There's several, isn't there? Exactly.
It's like that. Yeah, United is our religion, and it's true. It is like a religion, because it fulfills that void, and they give their whole life and commitment towards this one cause. And I don't know whether you guys had the same experience, but I didn't go into it, but when I started working on the laptop at home, I could sense the disappointment from everyone. Everyone didn't want to talk about it. Everyone's a bit on edge because England have lost, and you could tell. I'm having one-to-ones with some of my team, and they just can't help but talk about it and get angry why Southgate did this. And I'm just like, come on, it's just a game. Like, get over it. It's not that bad. But it's because it means so much to them. And just going back to your point about, Mad, you asked the question that, this kind of scummy mentality that we've seen, people being racist, people being aggressive and domestic abuse and stuff like that. Is it a minority, or is it en masse? And I think, yes, there may be minority of cases. Like there might be, because people are making the point that, but the racist comments everyone's not making them. Like if you go on some of the social media accounts, you can see that people are supporting Saka and Sterling, or not Sterling, Rashford or Sancho. Everyone's not making it, but there's only some people that are making some racist comments. So you could argue that, it's just a minority. But I don't know about that, because I feel like there is an undertone there. When it came to Brexit, what was the narrative? The narrative was very much about immigrants. They're taking out jobs, and
exactly. If
you
got the
don't need to be
likes of
racist.
Nigel Farage and Katie Hopkins
Yeah.
being given airtime.
Bro, what did Boris Johnson say about like? Is he the one that said you went to Africa and you seen like the mouths were like melons or so? Remember, he said something really
I
bad.
think it was, yeah.
You know, and then the Muslim women is like a letterbox and so.
Letterbox.
This is the Prime Minister. Come on, bro.
Exactly.
Why are we trying? Why are we trying to make it? Why are we trying? Gary Neville is saying this. Gary Neville is dropping this. You get me? He's saying, look, if you've got a bigoted racist in power, what do you expect? Come on, man. As Muslims, we need to be sharper than that. If Gary Neville can see it, and I rated him as a right back, but you know what I mean? We're Muslims. You know, we're you know, why can't we see it? And that's the problem, innit?
Yeah. And then going back to what we're trying to say, I think the main point is that Islam eradicated all of this 1400 years ago. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in his final sermon said that there's no superiority over a black man over a white man over a black man and an Arab over a non-Arab. So, you know, we know that Islam eradicated racism, and not just a kind of verbal level or just rhetoric. Actually, physical actions you can see where Islam made the slave who was downtrodden, Bilal, Ibn Rabah, he was downtrodden and he was like the lowest of the low. He rose to be one of the greatest of the Sahaba in Islam. So Islam eradicated it at the root. And as you were saying, Malcolm X and others have said that it is Islam that solves this problem of racism. And we've had various other talks about, you know, in America, racism being massive, it kind of leading to the George Floyd thing and the Black Lives Matter movement. But the reality is that none of this will solve the problem. The problem will only be solved by Islam and the Islamic bond, because that's what eradicated Islam and racism in the first place. And even today, that will be the same.
And another, you know, just to add to that as well, I think we mentioned it on other podcasts and stuff, you know, on the Talking Lean podcast. What we mentioned, I think I might have said it before, is, you know, the Western civilization, they say that they are progressing. So, you know, okay, there's, you know, like when they talk about Churchill and when they talk about, you know, Abraham Lincoln and his links to slavery and stuff like that, what they say is, okay, those guys did some bad stuff, but at least they did some good stuff as well, and we'll learn from our history, we'll get better. So they try to say that over time their civilization will progress, but what we're seeing today is racism actually getting worse. We're seeing discrimination between people of different nations and things getting worse. That's not to say everybody. You are seeing some people who are going, actually, you know, people are traveling, people are seeing different people of different color. So some, you know, that element of multiculturalism does work. And people, you know, you are getting some people who are completely not racist.
There's a lot of good people. There's a lot of good people out there.
No,
there's a lot
100%. And there's a lot of people who are outright speaking out now, going, these people in our society who are racist, they're just despicable, and they're saying the right things. But that doesn't take away from the fact that racism, right wing, you know, people who are completely kind of superiority complex, white supremacy, that is increasing. So for you guys to say your civilization is progressing and getting better in any way under the ideology of secularism is a complete flawed narrative. Flawed.
And do you know what? It's a really good point about, we're not blaming everyone. We're not saying everyone's racist. We're actually blaming the system. We're blaming the system. The system of secularism is what you know, leads to racism. And actually, we're advising those who are against it to recognize this, that the problem that you're identifying correctly, and it's good to see that support, is not just in people. It's not just people that are right wing. It's actually in the system, and the system that gave rise to the current prime minister. You know what I mean? So actually, it's a really, I think it is a really good point to make, that it's not just, we're not targeting people. We're not talking about the people who join EDL. We're actually talking about the system that gives rise to people like the EDL. And rise to other people that may not be as stronger as the EDL, but actually still carry these right-wing views. I think it needs to be qualified, definitely.
You know, just another one, Majis. Again, it's the same topic, but I think it's important for Muslims to think about. Is that
go for it.
is, you know, the other thing about the whole Euros, and I'm gonna profess to having watched quite a few of the games, is
Easy
that
now.
escapism. And I think my worry is
Yeah.
like, look, we saw what happened in Palestine, we saw what happened in Gaza, we saw all the killings of our brothers and sisters and our children during Ramadan. But then like this competition came about, and many people got busied in the fact that headline news is, oh, this match, that match. So these kind of sporting events, what they do is they detract from the real world issues. So someone might say,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's just a game of football, but you know, how much of your time have you over a period of time spent watching football or following the football versus what is going on with our Muslim brothers and sisters? And then you add to that all of the other means of escapism that we have in this society, like your Netflix, like your binge watching,
Yeah.
like your TV, and everything that we have. What all of this does is it detaches you from the real problems. And my fear is that that's affecting Muslims as much as anybody else. And therefore, many of our issues, we are not tackling them because we are, you know, victims of this system as well.
Yeah, no, 100%, bro, and that's why. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't watch a lot of the football. I watched, I think, the three Turkey matches, and I was utterly disappointed. And and I didn't watch any other ones. But the what you're saying there, I remember a post by Sheikh Asar Rashid, and basically I can't remember the exact words, but what he was basically saying is that, you know, the energy and the zeal and all this, you know, effort that these Muslims are showing in is coming home, they should be focusing this towards their deen, right? And
Yeah.
I thought that's a fair comment. You can't argue with that because it's exactly what you're saying, Rash. That, you know, we only have a certain amount of hours, minutes, seconds in a day, right? If we're spending it all on not just football but all the other things you're on about escapism, whether it's Netflix or just not doing anything, then how much time are we spending towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, spending towards the purpose of our life, which is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And you're right, in this, you know, in our current times, you know, you could binge watch and binge watch for months and years. I think there's so much content out there, and it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's
You don't
scary,
want
and
your,
it's intentional.
yeah.
By the way, it's intentional. It's not just because of, you know, like people want it, therefore there's a demand, so there needs to be a supply. I genuinely think the powers that be recognize that this is a means of controlling the masses.
Bro, have you seen that program? Okay, irony is that it's on Netflix, but it's called The Social Dilemma, I think.
Yeah, I have actually.
Yeah.
If you know that stuff, if you told someone, they would think this is fiction. But here it's telling you these are guys who work for Google and all these, you know, massive organizations who are telling you exactly what their motives are, exactly how they're doing it.
Well,
But
you
people don't
know
want to
these
believe
things.
it.
If they work, you know, like you get people who will be more clued on politically, more clued on ideologically. Imagine those people are affected, then what chance do everybody else have? And when I say affected, what I mean is, you know, these AI algorithms, what they do, I'll give you a couple of the quick examples. When you're on social media, what they do is the AI learns the type of stuff that you normally look at. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what it will do is it will bombard you with more of that stuff. Or if you go to search for something you need to buy, yeah, and then all of a sudden you get bombarded with that. At the same time, when you're watching Netflix and you watch one movie, then you get bombarded with more movies similar. So what's happening is this AI is actually it learns your behaviors and the things that you're interested in and things that are entertaining to you, and it bombards you with more of that. You're talking about someone who might be ideologically quite clued up, politically quite clued up, now gets, you know, utilized by
Sucked
that
in.
very same system, sucked in. All of a sudden, you know, these people who were previously, you would categorize them as being the people who created revolutions, all of a sudden are being consumed by this entertainment and escapism. How are people going to ever change the reality of this, you know, the 1% and the capitalist elite who are, you know, causing mass poverty around the world? How are the people who are going to instigate change if they're constantly controlled by these systems? It's scary.
Yeah. And just
Yeah.
linked to that, I think I know we've probably spoken for a while, but one thing that I do it kind of upsets me a little bit is that when we were younger, I feel like we had this kind of mentality of rebellion, revolutionary, like we didn't see ourselves as part of them. And now I feel as though that mentality seems to have gone, or largely gone, where everyone seems to be wanting to be together and pluralism and we're all one and all of this. And I think that for me needs to change because we're only going to be able to change if we genuinely view the need for change. So yeah, the social engineering is being used. People are because as humans, our behavior is very predictable. We don't act in an erratic way. We don't do things differently. We're actually, if you kind of think about your day every day, it's quite routine. You'll do the same things at the same time. So they know that they can kind of calculate that, and as Rash is saying,
Yeah.
promote stuff based on your behavior. But my main point is that I don't know about you guys, but I've been witnessing more from the younger generation that mentality of rebellion and kind of questioning of the government, questioning of the narrative, questioning of the kind of establishment seems to have gone a little bit. And it might be because of this escapism, because they're just binge watching stuff and watching football, and this has become the void rather than really questioning. I don't know. I've seemed to have seen that. Whereas when we were a bit younger, it seemed like we were rebelling, we were questioning the establishment. I don't know what you guys think.
I don't know if it's that widespread, but at the same time, I could just be in my own echo chamber, the word that Rash always likes to use, or my own bubble. But one thing is the solution to what you're explaining there is Islam. And what do I mean by that? If a Muslim understood the seerah, understood the reason why Islam is here, what our mission is, then these things wouldn't be a problem. And what I find scary as a sort of like final point is that people are then being taught Islam, but that even that Islam is catered in a way where it accepts the status quo. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So I think that's where the problem is, because if someone understood, we would feel more affiliated to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Umar radiallahu anhu, Abdul Hamid II than we would do, for example, to Marcus Rashford, to Harry Kane, and so on, right? And that's why I know it's something which many people use all the time, and you hear it a lot that how many Sahabas names do you know, but how many footballers names do you know?
But the example you're giving, isn't it a good comparison? Is the fact that all of the football that's been on has made us think in a certain way, and then before, when everybody was talking about Ertugrul, and everybody was watching it, everybody was talking about it. There was that, let's learn more about our history. Look at the successes we had as an ummah and all of that. Can you see how the media and what is, even if it's entertainment, what
too powerful,
is promoted to us in that way actually engineers the way we think, and,
it's too powerful,
and actually sets the public opinion of the masses. And I think that's what is good in a way and dangerous at the same time. It means that if you have a proper state apparatus that knows that this is my people, this is our ideology, this is what we're based on, and let's promote that, whether that's via academia, whether that's via entertainment, whatever means, is we prepare our people so that, like you said, their purpose in life is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understand their Islamic identity, then that would have a massive effect on its population, in the same way as the type of escapism they promote and the type of military activity they promote is having that effect on the current populations. So it goes to prove it's very difficult as individuals to change this. It requires full state level operation, which is why it's so difficult to change it now.
Yeah, man. And you know what? To be honest with you, I think there's so many other great topics we could bring out from this one, but this one, I think we need to sort of bring it to a close. What I would say, and I'll get your final thoughts, brothers, is that when they're saying it's not coming home, as the title suggests, obviously, first of all, it isn't, because they lost, and secondly, because as Muslims, this is what I've always said. You look around at someone, whether he's brown, black, or whatever, link your origins here back to colonialism. If there was no colonialism, you wouldn't be here. You would actually be home, right? And I think that's what JK was alluding to as well. So as Muslims, if people support England and stuff like that, you know what? From a sporting level, I can't do it, but if someone else wants to do it, fair dues. But there's definitely more of an issue. It's not just sport. There's more ideas being pumped down, and we need to be wary about it. Not just us, other parents who are happy for their kids to be donning the shirts and waving the flags. They need to understand this, and that's the sort of last points that I've got. But yeah, you guys, Rash. Or actually, I'll start with JK. JK, just give me your final thoughts, bro.
Yeah, just finally, like you said, it's not coming home, but we should think about now what the rhetoric they're pushing. So it's not coming home, but they're telling us to go home, whether it be Paki go home or Blacks go home, and that's the reality of it. When football was uniting and this temporary unification, we're all holding hands. But now that they've lost and it's not coming home, the real truth has come out, and they're telling us to go home.
They never stopped us. They never stopped telling us to go home, but that's another issue. But yeah, Rash, what are you saying? Jazakallah for that, JK. Rash, what are you saying? Final points?
No, my point is just that, okay, entertainment, people need to find some time to, watch some TV or some entertainment. What I would say is just make sure that doesn't go to the level of where, that affects your deen and your life. Because you might think, oh, okay, today it's just a game of football, but these things do manifest and these things do consume more and more of your time, and 100%. There is an ulterior motive to some of this. You don't identify as it. As soon as you identify as that and let it identify you and then your children after you, then know that downstream, after a few generations, you have contributed to future generations losing their Islamic identity.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be a culprit in that, and instead, yes, enjoy it as entertainment, but at the same time, make sure you appreciate what your purpose in life is. And all of this stuff about racism and all of these things, we know that only Islam can eradicate that. So we need to make that effort to bring about Islam again, so that, even these people who are the ones that are doing the racist comments, they need Islam more than anybody else, remember.
Sure.
Because, we don't hate the person, we hate what they do. Their racist actions is what we hate. Actually, that person could turn out to be the best Muslim in the world if he had Islam. It just so happens they're ignorant and they don't have Islam, which is why they're carrying out those despicable acts. Just as some of the people prior to Islam, some of the Sahaba prior to Islam, they said some despicable things and carried out some despicable actions. But as soon as Islam came to them, they transformed. And that's why we need to take Islam to all of these people.
Yeah, man. They became the best of the best.
They became the best. Exactly.
Yeah, man. No, wicked points, brothers, inshallah ta'ala. So hopefully people listening to this, if they listen to the full episode, they'll understand that, look, we're not just over exaggerating anything. We're putting things into context, and there's no point me repeating anything. Just listen to the full episode, and you'll get an idea of what we're trying to say. And certainly for Muslim parents out there, it's really important. You got to understand these things, because there's big games, a big agenda out there. But first of all, Jazakallah khair to Rash and JK for joining me on this another episode of Wots Hapnin Muslims. Guys, it's wicked to have you on. It's wicked to have you on. I could have delved a bit into your Manchester United fanaticism, but I thought, you know what, I'll let you guys off. You know what I mean? Because we don't want to be given a bad image in that.
Maybe next time.
All right, cool, man. Inshallah, let's leave it at that, and I'll get this on YouTube, and inshallah we can share it with family and friends and stuff. Yeah.
Wicked. Take it easy.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.